today we have the pleasure to welcome with us our friend Charles Reed, that is Managing Director of BLOOLOOP, one of the leading media of the leisure entertainment sector, and Eddie Kemsley, that is CEO of Sans Heritage, Dreamland Margate, one of the oldest attraction park in the UK, for talks on the new measure and new technology that the leisure, attraction, and entertainment venues will be adopting in the new post-COVID eras. So Charles and Eddie will try to outline the future of leisure-based entertainment sector, the way the industry will restart and how it will change in the next future. So now I thank you again for joining us, and I pass the microphone to Charles.
Thank you, Francesco. My name is Charles Reed from BLOOLOOP. We write about the attractions industry. What I'm going to do today is run you through basically 10 major changes we're going to see to the attractions industry post-COVID, which we hope will come pretty soon. I'm just going to share my screen. So I'm hoping you can all see this and you can all hear me okay. The first major change we're going to see, I think, is perhaps the most obvious one, and that's different visitor numbers. Theme parks, for example, are going to be opening at less than 50% capacity, maybe less, maybe 30%. And we're already seeing in Asia, which is a good place to look for post-lockdown environment, that advanced booking is going to be very important for attractions. Beijing Palace Museum, for example, they're doing all their attendance via advanced booking. You can't go unless you book in advance. Kolmården Zoo over in Sweden, which again has a different trajectory with COVID, they're doing advanced booking too. So that's going to be a pretty major change in terms of what we'll see. Time slots, again, related to advanced booking. A lot of big museums and exhibitions are well used to this. So you buy a ticket, you go to a specific time. And I think more and more attractions are going to use this kind of system so they can manage how many people are in their attractions. FECs, they have a very touch-heavy environment they'll be able to make time for themselves to clean the environments by staggering entry. Managing who's there. There is a capacity management system, for example, from Venice, which currently operates, which allows you to work out how many people are in your attraction at any one time. So a lot of tech, which I'll mention shortly, is helping operators do this kind of thing. Ticketing, again, huge change to ticketing. I imagine the old ticketing booths are going to be a thing of the past. There'll be like Fanta Wild in China, for example, they're doing tickets that include an annual pass. So there's a lot of discussion about whether theme parks and attractions will charge more because they've got to obviously earn back some of the money they lost. They've got higher operating costs, or whether they'll charge less. I think they're going to be charging less just to get people in through the doors. There'll be VIP ticketed systems, ticketed experience. There'll be more and more ticketed experiences where you can have a VIP experience with fewer people around you. But as I say, the old tiles ticketing booths are out, and e-ticketing is going to be the new thing, the new normal. Increased cleaning procedures. As we know, in terms of cleaning, washing your hands with disinfectant, sanitization stations are going to be more and more prevalent everywhere. So if you're in that kind of business, that's a business that will be doing well right now. Belwada over in Europe, their ride safety, for example, their rails, they're going to clean them after every ride. So the day-to-day operations for operators and the day-to-day experience for park guests is going to be very, very different. Thing to mention here is VR. I have read many times that this is the end of VR because who's going to be wanting to handle VR goggles and a VR headset? But I think the point is everything's going to have to be clean. So if VR goggles are just one other thing that needs to be sanitized by an operator, then perhaps people will be fine with that. Getting into attractions is going to be different. Will there be full body disinfection stations like there are in China? If there are, they could be themed. They could be an immersive experience. With so many creatives in our industry, people could make these into part of the whole experience that could be branded. So that's a change. Bob Iger, Disney CEO, he's looking at China, which everyone in this industry is. And he's saying we have to get ready for a world where we will scrutinize everybody. So being checked upon entry to sites will become the new norm. There'll be thermal imaging cameras. There'll be, in China, for example, they have green QR codes, which once you're okay, you can use those to get into attractions. They'll be masked again, which could be themed, which could be designed. So this is all going to be the new normal. Once in attractions, the actual environment will be changing a lot in terms of allowing for social distancing. This is a very obvious case with roller coasters. So this coaster in China, there's 2 people for every 4. The people have masks. And so it's a big change in terms of the actual experience within the attraction. Restaurants, for example, will change. The tables will be more spaced out. In zoos, they may well cancel things like public feeding, which draw crowds. Meet and greet with characters and attractions will be different. Again, big parks, small parks that run parades, stunt shows, things that gather crowds. These things will probably be not something we'll see back in the short-term future. Outdoor spaces. Some attractions may well keep their indoor spaces closed, but only open their outdoor spaces. Shops, for example, attractions might sell produce from carts that they take around, so to avoid the congestion and the huge number of people crammed into shops. So it may change the retail environment within attractions too. The next important thing, of course, is operators shouldn't forget about the health and training of their own staff, because they have to be looked after in the same way as you look after guests. So it's important that they keep a keen eye on that. Apps. Technology is going to help change help mold the post-COVID world for attractions. So on the screen there's an app by a company called Holovis, and what this does, it's called Crowd Solo. What it does, it allows an operator and allows people to work with reservations, track movement of crowds, this kind of stuff. But it also vibrates if you get too close to another group of people. So it's actually helping to manage social distancing while people are within the park. So I think apps are going to be something more and more people will use inside events. As Attractions.io, the company that specializes in theme park apps, they've been saying for a long time that the app experience within a park will become integral to your visit there. Whitewater, for example, they've got an app, Vantage, which allows for operators to track interactions between the different facilities within the park and the visitors. So it gives valuable data to the operators. And finally, I think on a whole, we're going to be using technology differently, and it's going to be even more immersed into the park experience. So Disney, for example, they have these magic bands. There's a Disney World, and it's all accelerating towards a cashless environment, a non-touching cashless environment. Super Nintendo World soon to open at Universal. They have power-up bands, again, non-touching, and along the same lines, we're going to be seeing more haptic technology, perhaps gesture technology as well. So the whole environment within parks will be driven by technology as we get used to environments with fewer and fewer people. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be the glamorous assistant today to Eddie and hand you over to, if I can finally mention our own virtual conference, which is taking place on the 12th, the week of the 12th of October, which is the month before the LeisurUp in Cannes. So they work quite well together. So I'm going to, forgive me for a moment, right, here we go. Now, yeah, I'm now going to pass you over to Eddie Kemsley.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, good morning as well. I can see from the chat there are people from all over the world joining us today. It's great to have so many people engaged in this webinar. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, how we're going to deal with things sort of here in the UK, but also just from a wider perspective. And those of you that know Back to the Future will recognise this shot. And I think, you know, the first thing that happened in the sector was, or you know, just generally in the population, was this kind of mass shock around COVID-19, and kind of everybody's still reeling from it. You know, the advice that we're getting today is probably not the advice that's going to be relevant next week or the week after. There are definitely themes, and Charlie's touched on a load of those themes around what we do know. We do know some things. We do know we're going to have to look at social distancing. We do know we're going to have to consider how people enter our attractions, how people use them, how we keep our staff safe. But there's also a lot we don't know, and everything is changing all the time. So, you know, I think the first thing we really have to do is really think about how we can make sure we keep really current, and webinars like this are great. There's so much information on the internet. There's so much information from advice bodies like IAPA, who will help attractions navigate what are very, very uncertain territories for us all at the moment. But what is clear is that as the industry, we've really got to hunker down at the moment. We've got to be very, very careful how we tiptoe through this. And, you know, attractions were one of the first sectors of industry to be closed. And I think globally, they'll be one of the last to be reopened. We're starting to see some of that happen in different countries around the world, but certainly in the UK, we don't have any solid information really at the moment about if attractions can open, and if they can, when they can open. Although we're starting to see some of the outdoor attractions like zoos and attractions that are more based around sort of public parks and that kind of thing, to start thinking about how they could get open and how they could adopt some of the new safeguards that need to be put in place for staff and consumers. Next one, please, Charlie. So we know that the short, medium impact of COVID, if you look at the left-hand side, you can see the big block of red, which is location-based entertainment. And, you know, at first glance, this can be, you know, really worrying. You know, how do we react to this as attractions that are all about people coming to us? You know, we are in the industry of getting people together. That's what we do. And you know, suddenly we're being told that's the one thing that we can't do and we shouldn't be doing. So what do we do? Do we react by trying to go online? We've seen some brilliant examples of people doing this here in the UK. Organisations like Longley and Chester have been doing fantastic online, you know, webinars and films showing animals being fed. You know, they're taking advantage of the fact that kids are home, and they're doing a lot more online as well, and you know, sort of doing all sorts of screenings to show what they're up to. Other people have diversified. We've got sites doing things like drive-in movies. We've got people even opening farmers markets and supermarkets where they can, to try and you know, generate some revenue in a time that's so uncertain. Next one, please, Charlie. So Alba did an interesting piece of research where they asked, you know, consumers what they thought. And this was about 2 weeks ago. They asked consumers what they thought about how long it would take people to feel confident to return. So I think half of this is about us as an attractions industry being ready for people to return, and the other half is about actually consumer confidence and people having that confidence that they can go safely to attractions and you know, areas that might have larger numbers of people. And the good thing is, you know, that we're starting to get best practice coming from all around the world that we can take advantage of, and we can look at and study to understand how we can implement that best practice in our own attractions. You know, but this is again changing all the time, and here you can see that interestingly, actually, indoor play centres have got a shorter anticipated return time to something like a zoo. But I would imagine if they did this piece of research again now, that would shift, because people are already seeing the government are talking about outdoor space being you know, much better environment. You know, COVID spreading much less in outdoor spaces. So I'd be interested to see what would happen if this was done again. Next one, please. You know, social distancing, we know, is going to be the absolute priority for people. 74% of visitors to attractions saying social distancing will be their priority, very closely followed by cleanliness, and then obviously they're worried about how there will be intervention among staff and visitors. So you know, this is going to be top priority for our consumers, and communicating that through websites and channels where people can buy tickets and things is going to be key to give them that confidence pre-visit, and at the point of buying a ticket, that they really know that as attractions we've got this nailed and we've got this sorted. So what does that actually look like? What does it mean when people turn up? Next one please, Charlie. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's actually what you can see there is, you know, quite extensive measures that schools are taking in China before children are allowed in, and it's just perhaps an interesting comparative to what we might need to do in the attraction sector before customers can come through our doors, in order to make sure people feel, you know, completely safe, whether it's from, you know, sanitisation, masks, you know, temperature taking, etc. There's quite a lot of things involved in that, which all of which we'll be watching closely to see how some of the bigger operators adopt some of those policies. And we're seeing some of the bigger operators now, Disney, Merlin, etc., start to open sites around the world, and they are starting to put some of these measures into place. But none of that looks particularly fun. They've obviously tried to make it a bit more appealing to young children, but I think for visitors, when they're coming to us, and they come to us for entertainment and fun, this is leisure and this is their time off, you know, this feels quite onerous and you know, quite negative on entry to a park. And as Charlie said earlier, I'm sure that some of the creatives in our sector are already thinking about how they can make this into part of the, you know, entry experience. But we really do need to look for ways that might make it more appealing to consumers as well, and make them feel more comfortable. Next one. This is an example of a restaurant that have adopted these nice sort of little glass houses and to run their F&B from. And actually, I think, you know, this would sell as a premium experience. People would pay extra money to have their own little private space with their outlook over the river there. So I think there are ways as an industry that we can really look to try and find fun, engaging ways to make people feel special and not feel like they need to be worried all the time about the safety issues that really are our job to take care of. And in our industry, we have a lot of safety issues, whether that's, you know, in zoos or with rides, etc. And we work really hard to make sure that our consumers can have a, you know, relatively carefree day, and that's not their primary priority when they come to visit us. But this is going to become the major thing that people think about and consider when making decisions about visiting attractions in the future. You know, we do know a few things. We know that, you know, as depressing as it sounds, that there is going to be, you know, a recession. We know that in the UK definitely and globally there are going to be huge consequences from what's happened over the last 6 months or so. And, you know, I think that means people aren't going to be doing, you know, the bigger things. They're not going to be moving house. They're not going to be, you know, maybe buying a new car or going on an expensive holiday. But that does mean that people will have potentially the ability to go and spend a bit of money on a day out. And I think there's an opportunity for the attractions industry to really give people that little bit of escapism and that little bit of entertainment and leisure time that they can enjoy when perhaps they don't have the ability to spend money on the bigger purchases. And, you know, tied to that, I think there is going to be, you know, a real focus on the staycation. People are going to want to stay local. Governments around the world, and certainly in the UK, the government here is going to spend a lot of money on driving and promoting staycations, promoting all of the amazing attractions, assets, coastlines that this country's got. And I think that's another real opportunity for UK-based attractions and in other countries for people to really refocus back in on our more domestic tourist markets and getting those people to visit us. Next one. So, you know, we are really focused on you know, the new normal, as everyone keeps talking about? And the answer really is that we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But I think focusing on 2021, focusing on how, you know, when we've come through this to a certain extent, we can offer people multi-sensory activities and experiences again, how we can, you know, it's human nature to socialize, and people are going to want to do that. So that the safest way that we can offer that in the future is going to be what will, you know, give consumers that confidence that's been so battered over the last few months. You know, we are all in the business of bringing people together. We've just got to find that new normal way of doing it. Thank you.
Cool, good stuff. I think is Francesco around? I think we're going to have some questions now.
While we're waiting for Francesco, I can see someone's asked about the anticipated return times, and they were done about 3 or 4 weeks ago by Alva. So I think, you know, it would definitely be interesting to see what they look like now. So I think they will have changed those sort of that focus on FECs, seemingly people feeling more comfortable going back to them more quickly, and things like zoos less so. I would bet that that's flipped around now.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. It's very, very interesting. So as Eddie says, we have people coming from all over the world. That's a good thing. That means that lots of people are look to understand what's going on in next month, in next month. Yeah. Some question as well. So the first question was about the new normal and the new business model that the new normal will imply. I mean that we see that we need to keep social distancing. We need to have less available places in the attraction. We'll have additional costs for sanitization and securities. So how does it will work? There will be a hike in the pricing, or just will be keep the same level of pricing, work differently? And yeah, this is a question that everybody is asking now.
I mean, I don't think there's an easy answer. I wish there was. You know, at the end of the day, costs are going to go up. The level of cleanliness, as you say, the amount of controls needed on entry to attractions, the investment companies are going to have to make into tech, ticketing, you know, all those sorts of things costs up. That consumers will understand that to a certain extent. I think we're going to see a big rise in membership. I think people are going to look, particularly with their local markets, their 1 hour drive times, to try and get those local consumers to commit to them as a business and try and drive income through membership. And then I think, as Charlie talked about, I think VIP and those sort of more premium tickets where you can have less people having a more you know, detailed or immersive experience is going to be a big part of the future as well, because ultimately those big mass gatherings are just not going to happen, certainly this season, and I think to a certain extent into next season as well.
Yeah, no, thank you, Eddie. There's another question. This is my personal question, because I think that there is for sure some measure that will just for this moment till we have a vaccine and things will go on normally, and measure that will last basically in long term. What do you think? It's because I cannot imagine that we have the temperature control or sanitization once we have the vaccine. So how long do you think that it will take then to get back to a very new normal for the industry?
I think it's going to be almost I think we're looking at, I don't know, late 2021 with all the talk is of there being waves. So I know in Australia, for example, they're talking about having 3 waves. They're working on the assumption that it will perhaps go away-ish during the summer and then come back in the autumn. And yeah, and I think we're already seeing some attractions that have reclosed after opening. I know Wuhan just this morning had 6 new cases. They'd gone down to 0. So they're already thinking about how to cope with that. So I think it is, I would much rather it wasn't, but it's an ongoing thing, which will be years getting rid of it. And I think obviously the vaccine would be huge if one was developed.
Just another question for Eddie. The anticipated returning times that you mentioned in your slide, what's the start date? It's the unlock date? Then plus 3 months?
a little bit after. It was about 2 weeks after that, and that was a UK-based study. But I think, you know, we're going to see a lot of this data coming out, you know, as people's mindset changes, more data comes from governments, as we start to see the, you know, the countries around the world that are ahead of ours and how they're dealing with things. And as Charlie talks about, you know, the second wave, third wave, you know, we also have, you know, real seasonality here. So, you know, as we head towards the winter, you know, are we naturally going to see a second wave come as we enter into the winter months? You know, which for seasonal businesses isn't such, you know, a big, won't have such a big impact, because a lot of the attractions that are outdoors, etc., don't trade as much through the winter. So, you know, I think that's something that's going to constantly change as new data, new information, you know, comes in. And I think that we've all got to keep a really close eye on the latest data that's coming out and work off, you know, data that's as current as it can be. And I think those organisational bodies like BALPA, IAPA, ALVA, etc., will constantly, you know, feed the you know, the data and membership, or, you know, membership organisations and the industry generally.
Okay, thank you. Another question that's for both of you. Do you think that you see that there will be a preference for outdoor venues and solutions? Do you think that they will have an impact on the integration of leisure entertainment solution retail venues, as we are pushing far? There will be clearly a preference for the outdoor spaces due to the outbreak.
Yeah, I think that will impact the retail stroke leisure venues in the same way. So I think all the things that would affect a theme park or a museum will impact retail and leisure destinations in exactly the same way. I guess where you've got indoor facilities, they'll be facing the same challenges that, say, FECs face. So, so if you think of a lot of indoor attractions for younger kids, they're you know, highly tactile environments with lots of things to touch, or, you know, indoor play facilities, for example. All these kind of things will have, you know, difficult challenges. I think farm parks are an obvious kind of attraction which may well come out of this rather well, because they're already outdoor attractions. They already have sort of pretty low guest density, even on their peak days. So I think different attractions will face different challenges.
Okay, because there are some interesting remarks in the audience. They say that maybe drive-ins will be one of the hottest attraction right now, and we can use a retail park to transform it in drive-in, as they allow to keep social distancing.
Yeah,
that's true. Another question: do you think that due to the current situation, you see that you forecast some market consolidation in the next coming months and years? So some marriage acquisition and so on.
Yeah, Eddie.
Yeah, I think so. I think sadly we are going to see, some attractions not make it. I think we're definitely going to see some consolidation amongst probably some of the bigger groups that can, weather a storm like this, better. I think we will also see some, one of the things I found fascinating over the last, sort of 2 or 3 months is where, competitors that perhaps previously might not have ever talked or shared are talking and sharing, because we're all sort of facing this together. And so there does seem to be a real focus in the industry of banding together to work together, to whether that's to lobby government or to come up with, solutions and ideas or develop tech. People really are starting to work together, and you might see collaboration starting to sort of join forces with other organizations that have other pieces of the puzzle that they can fit together with their own attractions. And like you say, things like drive-in movies seems to be the bandwagon everybody's jumping on at the moment, and I think that will be really big, because there's no other way of going out to watch a movie at the moment, and cinemas are definitely a sector that are gonna feel the pain for quite a while.
Yeah, I think Eddie's right. I certainly, if you think of theme parks, Disney, Universal, they'll lose tons and tons of money. Merlin too, but these are big organisations with very strong backing, so I think they'll be fine. It's a smaller local parks, the smaller local chains are going to struggle. So I think there will be consolidation. And in other sectors too, I've read that there's going to be, pushing 10,000 museums in closing in the States alone. So there's going to be tons of smaller attractions will be closing. But yeah, so it's going to be a strange old environment after COVID.
Okay, thank you very much. It was really rich, interesting. So now time is pretty over. Yeah, thank you very much. And I would like to thank you, our guest, for being with us today. And I will just invite you to join. Due to the success we had on these talks and lots of questions from the audience, we decided to add a new and last session that will take place on Wednesday, 27th of May. It will be a special Q&A session, so an open session where you can ask questions directly to the 6 speakers we had the pleasure to welcome during this series of talks. So we'll have the pleasure to get back on stage Jonathan Doughty, Andreas Wasch, Eddie Kemsley, Charles Reid, Massimiliano Freddi, and Luis Alfieri. I know Luis was in the audience today, for asking them the many important questions you have in mind related to your activity and to the future of the industry. So you can register to this talk and post directly the question you already had, or of course asking the question during the next talk. So thank you very much again, and I look forward to welcome you on May 27th. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.